My name is Becky Martin, and my role with the Bourbon and Bluegrass Century is Chair of Bicycle Owensboro, who is presenting the Bourbon and Bluegrass Century. Bicycle Owensboro felt like we needed a local ride to encourage cyclists and to show off the area. So we started the Bourbon and Bluegrass because Owensboro we have the International Bluegrass Museum that's opening up, and bourbon. So we picked that, and we had the Bourbon and Bluegrass ride. So this will be our fourth year. We have our first ride. Before we were part of the Kentucky Century Challenge, we had got 100 riders, 120 I think. Second year we had 220. And then we joined the Kentucky Century Challenge, which really increased our participation. We had 579 riders last year. They come from Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Tennessee. Our routes are, of course, a century for the Kentucky Century Challenge. We have a metric century, 62, and we have a 30-mile. So the good thing about our routes are they kind of work off each other. So the 60 and the 100, if you're having you thought you were going to do the 60, but you're having a good day and you think today's a great day to do 100, you can just keep going. They don't break apart until later in the ride. So they all start out together from O.Z. Tyler. People want to know how the elevation gain, that's a big question. I say when you think of Kentucky, they think of mountains, but we are in rural western Kentucky and we are flat farmland most of the way. There's 2,000 feet of elevation in the 100-mile. It's flat, it's rural. The cars on the road are generally very nice and give you a lot of leeway. Our rest stops are every 15 to 20 miles. They're either in the shade or inside, and we're happy about that because we think August could be warm. I think we could be the flattest century in Kentucky, and people think flat is easy. Sometimes flat is not easy because there are no downhills to catch your breath. And I say our hills in western Kentucky are the wind, but the corn will be up and it'll block the wind. This year, if you rode last year, we tweaked the end of the 60 and the 30, and the 60 is going to come back into town the same as the 100. So there's going to be some hills at the end just to make you happy. Ride features for a ride are the live bluegrass band we have after the ride while we have lunch. Lunch will be back at O.Z. Tyler. We start and end at O.Z. Tyler, which is the local distillery that's part of the Bourbon Trail here in Owensboro. The t-shirt that riders get as part of registration will be a dry fit shirt. They were very popular last year. They were 2 colors, and we are going to actually have that shirt again this year in a different color. The partners and sponsors for the ride, we couldn't do it without them. We have O.Z. Tyler, the local distillery. We start in there and use their event center, which is inside, which is a plus. If you would like a beer, you can buy a beer there or another drink. We will have lunch. The other sponsors, to join the Kentucky Century Challenge, we had the Owensboro Davis County Convention and Visitors Bureau. We had the Davis County Fiscal Court contributed. We couldn't have done it without their help. We have many local sponsors. Mellow Mushroom helped us last year with our lunch. They're going to help us again. Great Harvest is a new sponsor. They're going to help us somehow with our continental breakfast. We'll have a continental breakfast that morning. Legends, Be Real Sports, and Max's Spikes might help us. Independence Bank, Osmo, Domtar, Walmart, OMU, Kimberly-Clark, Alaris, Rotary, Affordable Care, Edward Jones, Texas Gas. Our ride will benefit Dream Riders of Kentucky, which is an equestrian therapy program in Eastern Davis County that benefits children with special needs and even adults with special needs. It was started by Mike Clark, who the ride is in honor of this year. Last year, with the help of all our sponsors and all our riders, we were able to give $19,000 to Dream Riders. It was pretty amazing. It's simple to be able to go and get up and walk or do, and these kids and adults can't. So they have the horses for the people for therapy, and if you think about how to get a child out of a wheelchair onto a horse, so they needed lifts, they need to take care of the horses. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's a great organization. When you come to the Bourbon and Bluegrass Century and see Owensboro, we're going to have the mixer. We call it a mixer. Friday night, the early packet pickup at OZ Tyler. We did that last year, where you can come register, pick up your registration packet, and then we have the Friday after 5, every Friday after 5. And there's live music downtown on the waterfront, and Smothers Park has been built up in the last couple years, and that's quite the star in Owensboro's cap. The ride will start Saturday at 7. And then after the ride, the symphony has this concert on the lawn, and it's usually at Kentucky Wesleyan College, and it's outside on the lawn, and the symphony will play that night. We have OZ Tyler will have bourbon tours of the distillery for us Friday night, and then it will again be open for regular tours on Saturday. What I like about being involved in the Bourbon and Bluegrass Century is it's made me get out in the community and meet more people, and just the feeling that you've given something back to the community. I said, Pam Thomas, who's in charge of the Bourbon and the Kentucky Century Challenge, I talked to her at the beginning of our ride last year because I said, we have worked so hard on this ride for all year. There's so much involved in putting a ride on. There's the sag stops. I said, if the sag stops are bad, people will never come back. We have to have excellent sag stops. We have an excellent person that's in charge of our sag stops, and she worked, Kathy Graham, she worked so hard last year. You have to have a good route. People won't come back if you don't have a good route. And my husband went out and marked the whole route, and when you think there's probably 160, 90, 200 miles to mark, it's not easy. The ride was marked well. We had a great route. It was marked. We had the sags, and we had lunch. We had live bluegrass music. But before the ride, I talked to Pam. I said, I was so nervous. Is it going to go right or not? And she goes, don't worry. You know, something probably will go wrong, but just by the fact of it being such a large thing to undertake. And after the ride, I said I cried because I'm like, it worked so well and people worked so hard. And if there's something I want people to take, I'll probably start crying again. People go, oh, I didn't do much. When you think of all the volunteers that worked at the sag stops, worked at registration, marked the routes, helped with parking, and they go, I didn't do much. I just helped you something. And they think it's not much. And I'm like, it is a lot. Anything you do, when you said you were going to do it and your volunteer did it and you could depend on them, it just makes you cry that everybody helped so much. It was wonderful. I guess that's what I liked most. It makes me cry thinking about it now.
As always, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.